So, if you don't mind telling us who is Jorge Capestany and kind of a
Sure.
little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, first again, thanks for having me. So, who's Jorge Capestany? I've been in this tennis industry now for about 40 years. My background is I'm an immigrant from Cuba. I was born in Havana, Cuba, but came right away when I was a baby. I speak Spanish and English, and I didn't get introduced to tennis until almost my ninth grade in school. It happened really in the summer between my eighth grade and ninth grade years in high school. And the Bentley family, there's my two friends that moved into town, and I hung out with them. We played all kinds of sports, but they were a tennis family and a football family. They played all kinds of sports. So that was my first introduction to tennis. And I really liked it. I fell in love, and I got within a year, I decided that the next spring, my freshman year in high school, rather than play baseball in the spring, I wanted to try tennis. I wasn't necessarily good. I was pretty raw, but my friends were on the team, and luckily for me, I made the last spot on the team, and that was pretty cool. And I got to hang out, and I really liked it. And then that's what kind of hooked me on tennis. Um, within a year, I'm realizing, if I got to play year round. I'm in Michigan, you can't really play outdoors in the winter. So I started sniffing around the local club, and I went and spoke to a guy there, Don Dickinson, who was the pro at the time. And I didn't know. I just wanted to, like, how do people play inside? And I remember walking into this indoor club the first time, kind of like, oh my God, look at this. This is crazy. Um, but being an immigrant family, we really didn't have much money, and my parents, they would have freaked out if I said, "Hey, I need hundreds of dollars for clinics and stuff." So, um, as I listened to that guy tell me about what it takes to play inside, internally, I was kind of already checked out. I go, "Man, this ain't gonna work," but I was too embarrassed to say, "Oh, I can't afford it." So I just listened to him, and I said, "Okay, well, let me get back to you. I'm going to talk to my parents and stuff." And I was on my way out the door, and he literally says, "Hey, come on back in here." And he asked me a few more questions. I think he might have sent something. But he said, "Listen, if you don't have the money to do this, maybe what I can do is set you up with a walk-on pass." And I go, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, you pay $20 and you can walk on the court, but literally you can't reserve it. You got to be in person walk on." And I'm like, "Man, that's $20. I can do that." So that's how I got started. He kind of gave me that special walk on, and I used the heck out of it. Man, played like 15 hours a week with the same person, Chris Badgema. And he noticed, and if we could get there after school like around 3. By 4 p.m., the clinics were running, and we were off the courts doing homework in the lobby. And he saw that I was just living at the club, waiting to hop on the court, whatever. And he approached me and says, "Hey, I know you can't do the clinics, but if you want to do a clinic, maybe you can, clean the courts and sweep the courts in the morning." And I said, "Heck yeah." And that got me my first clinic. And then he said, "Maybe you can sweep the clay courts outside. I'll do it. Maybe you can clean the pool. Maybe you can clean the toilets." And I just kept taking these odd jobs so I could play in clinics. Never had a private lesson in my life. So that's how I got into that. And then right about my senior year, this coach, Don, said, "Listen, here's another thing you can do. You can maybe help out teaching with kids, with little kids, and that'll give you some more time on the court." And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And I think I did it halfway decent. And he says, "If you want to do more, start working with more levels, I need you to get certified." And I said, "Okay, what's that?" He says, "You got to," and he didn't tell me but one option. He said, "You got to go to Quebec in Canada, and you got to get certified at this thing called the PTR University with Dennis Vandermeer." I said, "Okay, well, how do I do that?" And I did it when I was about 20 or 19, I think. And that opened my eyes because I really didn't know anything about teaching. But that was an amazing experience for me. And I got started, and I kind of liked it. And then I kind of taught a lot through my college years. And then right after college, I did not think I was going to be a tennis pro. I literally had already interviewed for a sales job. And my buddy who played doubles with me called me at the time. He said, "Look, I want you to come back to your home club, Ramblewood, and I want you to be the director of tennis." And I thought, "Oh man, okay, yeah, I'll try that for a while." And here I am. It was been 41 years ago now that I took that first job. And I liked it. I had some good success. I was able to develop some really good juniors and some gold ball winners. And next thing you know, here we are. So the careers evolved. I think my early years, I was definitely a high performance coach. I was lucky to have some really good athletes and really talented players. And within my first 10 years, I had three different gold ball winners. And then, of course, that makes you the guru in town. So all kinds of people were driving over to my club. And then I switched to a bigger club. And I did that. And probably in my around 35 is when I started, shifting off the court, doing more on the court. I do have an entrepreneurial spirit. I started a couple of companies, tennis. Well, first one was Havana Bob's tennis shirts, which I now sold, but it's still out there and doing well. And about 11 or 12 years ago, I started my current company, Capestany Tennis Inc., which is best known for tennis drills.tv because it's I had a chance to speak and I spoke on tennis drills because that's what I always thought I wanted when I went to conventions. And it just went bonkers. People really, coaches, as you know, I mean, you give a coach a new drill and they're happy for a month, because it's really easy. I was a total victim of using the same 5 drills over and over forever. So yeah, now that company or my website has 2,000 tennis drills on it and subscribers in 72 countries, and it's going pretty well. So my current day job, if you will, is I'm the manager of the DeWitt Tennis Center at Hope College, which is a Division III school in Holland, Michigan. And I also am the PTM co-director. I started the PTM standing for Professional Tennis Management. We're one of 9 schools in the country that you can go and get a college degree and also study how to teach tennis. And I'm really proud of what we're doing with those kids because, they get a lot of immersion because we have full programs. So we're not huge. We're probably around 15 kids, but the kids that we're putting out are really, really good. They're getting an amazing job and job offers. So that's kind of my life journey in tennis.
I like it. I got 2 things I want to go from that because first of all, I think the tennis drill comment that you made for the coaches is kind of twofold. Bobby always says, he says, when we go to a tennis coach convention, what is it, Bobby? Like, if I come back with one new drill, I'm happy.
It was a good convention.
Yeah, that's true. And the longer you teach, it's this phenomenon that, if you've taught even 10 years, you probably used over 100 drills in your lifetime, either as a player or a coach. But I do this exercise when I do these 4-hour workshops where I'll say, all right, everybody right now, take a piece of paper. We're going to take 10 minutes. And I want you to write down every single drill that you can think of. And these coaches and I know it's literally a couple hundred at least, especially if they've been teaching for a while. But no one can write down more than 15. They get to 15.
No, top of your head, there's no way.
Yeah.
I'm doing it in my head right now. I got to 5 and I'm done. I'm like, but I know hundreds.
And I know, and that's kind of why I built a website. I know, like, I'll be presenting here at the World Conference in New Orleans, and I present all over the world. Like, I'm really lucky to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's so easy as a coach to like, what do I do? And you end up doing, your best hits, the 5 that you're in your current rotation. And it's so, if you can have a new drill that you really like, it was playing like, oh, genius, I love it, I'm going to use it. Man, even your players are fired up for a month. You're just like, oh my God, that was cool. Where'd you learn that one? So that's my passion. I love coming up with drills. I'm pretty good at it. And now that, like right now, I filmed over 2,000 tennis drills. I can't tell you 2,000 tennis drills. I can't tell you 100 tennis drills. So we need a database where like we forget more drills than we can remember for sure.
I agree. That is one of those scenarios. Back in the day, you just have that book. You're like, oh man, I need something fresh today. We do the same thing with the beginner 8-year-olds. It's okay. You know what? We've been doing the same thing for a month. We need at least one new thing to introduce. Right. You've got your staples. You have the things you still need to do. You've got your 6 to 8 different shots that we all know exist, and we've got our targets to be able to handle those. But it's always coming back with that one slightly different version You know, how many different ways can you play jail with a bunch of 10-year-olds? And
Right.
at some point, it's like, okay, what is that called? Maybe there's 100 different versions of that. And it'd
Right.
be really cool to be able to adjust by level. And that's one of the things Bobby and I talk about all the time. We're going to do drill. We're going to work with players similarly. But if you're an 8-year-old beginner, it's different from a 12-year-old beginner. It's different from,
Yeah.
obviously, I can keep going, right?
Yeah. One of the things I find, because I do speak a lot on that topic, and a couple things I've learned, and this is global. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm speaking in China or at Wimbledon or Norway or Australia. The same us teaching pros have the same problems. Why are we doing this drill? Is it boring? What's the purpose behind it? And a lot of times, and if, by the way, I'm a consumer still. So if I go to a convention and someone's title of the presentation has the words drills in it, there's like a 1,000% chance I'm showing up because I still want to learn.
That's your thing.
But a lot of times you'll see a drill and you're like, oh, okay, that reminded me of this drill that my college coach used to do. I forgot all about that one. And it may not even be new. It just might rattle something in your brain. So I guess it is kind of new because now it's back in your rotation. And the other thing is I've learned that coaches generally, this kind of sounds negative, but a lot of tennis coaches are not that great at modifying drills. So here's what happens to me a lot. I'll do a drill. It's going to happen in New Orleans, guarantee it. I'm going to have my wife there. My daughter's going to be there. I'll get some coaches out of the audience, and I'll do drills, and it'll go well. I know it will. But there's always going to be a percentage of people in the audience. Sometimes they come up to me and say, "Hey, Jorge, I really like those drills, but they won't work at my club." And I go, "Why won't they work?" They go, "Well, because you used Sean and Bobby. These guys are all freaking great players. My club, my players are horrible. They're really low skill. You can't do those drills." And I go, "Well, here's the deal. I actually do all those drills that you just saw with 2.5 players. You just got to know how to modify them." And man, I run across that globally. A lot of people, they just pigeonhole the drill. That would never work for that. That would never work for that. Most my drills, I'm going to say 90% of them, I can do with a 2-0 all the way to a 5-0. It just, here's the thing to remember. A 5-0 is going to look pretty dang sweet, because they're sweet looking players. And the 2-0, it's going to look a little rough, but they're still hitting the shots. They're still learning the idea, like, hey, in midcourt, you're going to be aggressive, and here's how to do it. They're just going to look like 2-0s when they do it. And that's fine. It doesn't mean you throw out a drill. There's maybe 10% of the drills where I would say, okay, don't do that with a 2.5. They skill wise, they can't do it yet. And it's just going to be a constant reminder that they stink at that drill. So there are some, but way overwhelmingly, I think most drills work for most people.
Yeah, and we've got with Tennis for Children, we've got our lesson plans, and along those lines, where we have it's the same game, but there are 3 different versions depending on the 6-year-old, the 8-year-old, the 10-year-old. So they scale is kind of how we describe it. I say I've got this one game that it's pretty much the same concept, but we can play it from never played before to kind of figuring it out, which is basically all we work with. Right. What we do is never played before to kind of figure it out. Once you kind of figure it out, then we give you to Bobby.
Right.
And he gets to worry about the drills for them.
Right. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, that's kind of what I do. And I think, from one of the unique things that I get to do, which not everybody does, that's teaching tennis, is I get to work with these, basically newish pros, these 19-year-olds that are now in college and learning it. So for most of us, you guys included, you haven't really been a beginner at teaching tennis for quite some time. You've been pretty good at it. So it's hard to put yourself in the shoes of a new pro. We all know there's a massive shortage of coaches. Literally a week does not go by where I don't get an email like, "Dude, you got to call me. I need a good pro." Everybody wants a great pro. Like, don't give me a scrub. Don't give me someone that doesn't know how to teach. I need them to be a really good player I'm like, okay, well, that's a unicorn. Go have fun trying to find that.
And are you willing to pay them what they're worth?
Yeah. But now I see all these kids, and a lot of the training and the drills I do, when I train them, it's just teaching them up on how to do it. And it's really interesting to see what scares them and what they need to, what skills do they need to acquire so they can feel like, okay, I can go on a court with adults and not be scared to death. And it's totally different than what you might want to teach a 20-year-old veteran pro that's had, 20 years of experience.
Well, that'd be harder. I know Bobby's got a lot of questions about your PTM program and how are we bringing new players or new coaches in? And that'd be one of those scenarios is, okay, once you've been in the industry 20 years, we're all really great at it and, there's nothing left to learn. And if you're that coach, you're probably not listening to this conversation because we all know there's always something left to learn. But Bobby and I were talking about that recently, and Bobby had a bunch of questions of, okay, how do we get more pros? What does that look like? And is that something is this PTM program helping with that? And how does that happen? Because we're going to have a similar question here in Atlanta because we want to bring all those people that, Bobby, how do you describe it? Just the guy with the basket of tennis balls in his trunk?
Right. Well, that's it. And I hear and that's one of the fascinating things. I love listening to you speak. What is the kid that's entering your program? What are they players? Are they a decent player who played in high school, but really wants to a career in coaching? What is the kid who's walking into the program?
Well, I know for us, and I'm pretty sure this is universal because I've been friends with a lot of PTM directors, and I know a lot of people who've gone through it. Your average PTM student in America is not an elite player. Half of them don't even play on their college tennis team. So the first PTM program ever at Ferris State University, my buddy Scott Schultz started that. And back in its heyday, it had like 100 people. So obviously, you don't have 100 people on your varsity tennis team. So the people that I look for, I look for people that play tennis. You can't be a total beginner. And I mean, you can be, actually. I can teach a total beginner how to be a really good teacher, but they're probably going to be teaching younger players and newish adults because for good or bad, they're not going to get the respect of a 4.5 person that wants to take a lesson. And then they'll just, say, well, this guy is not even as good as I am. Oh boy, guys. That's somebody at my front door, which never happens. So let me fix this.
I guess there's no airplane mode for the house.
So do you think we could be twins? Look, I'm probably about 5'9". If I wore glasses, I see other Cubans up close. I'm like, oh, see, I do look Cuban.
I got the same color shirt, similar look.
If I just had the different last name, I could get away with it.
No, you get best of both worlds.
That's true.
You get to claim it, but there are no assumptions about you.
That nobody walks in knowing exactly. Schindler throws a different vibe.
All right, guys. I hope that's editable. Literally, no one ever comes to my front door.
Everything is editable.
He rings the doorbell as a politician.
I was going to say this. I just said to Bobby, I said, there's no airplane mode for the house.
That's right. Anyway, sorry about that. So I think the general type of PTM student is that I look for is someone that loves tennis. They got to be a tennis nut. And I want to know that they have a outgoing personality, the kind of personality that's not shy, quiet. You can be shy and quiet and be a really good tennis pro, but I'm looking for the person that's kind of more outgoing. Because if they have those skills, I can teach them how to teach tennis. He's not going to know. No one walks into my college PTM program knowing the 9 checkpoints for the serve and the 6 checkpoints for the ground strokes. But I can teach them that. So the problem that we have, unfortunately, is that there's just, even in PTM schools, all the PTM schools combined have 160 total students. We need that to be like 3,000. I think in there's the equivalent in golf is the PGM programs. And I think there's someone just told me 2,000 of them and all combined, all the colleges. So that's 500 a year graduating and going into the industry. Tennis doesn't have that.
Well, and that's been around for thousands of years, as I would put it. I mean, that's just been around forever. And golf is more, I think, historically considered a business.
Yeah.
There's a higher, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, my opinion, in the Atlanta area, we see your your career path ends at director of tennis for a tennis pro, but for a golf pro, you can go further up into general manager to run a club. Usually it's not your tennis pro that makes it there.
Right.
So your golf pro college program is probably significantly more popular. But we would ask somebody like you and say, okay, how do we help with that? How do we promote? And we focus mainly on Atlanta, of course, but how do we help with that? When we go out with, as an example, our new project is going to be yelling at the Atlanta area. We're going to be talking about what's going on with the coaches, players, the social aspect of it. Why does it exist? We don't necessarily need a lot of high performance coaches here because it's much more social. Yet the young coaches, and I remember myself being a young coach, really liking the feeling of working with the high performance player. It felt like that was a better thing to be until I realized that director of tennis doesn't do that. And I wondered why the young player. So trying to figure out when you start, how do you get those young people that may or may not know there is a career path here, and even getting out of high school and go, you can go create a career path to get into teaching tennis, where I didn't do that. I know Bobby was in sports marketing. I went out and got a really useful philosophy degree. So I wasn't, going to college to be a tennis coach.
Right.
Yeah, that can be a thing.
Yeah.
It exists. And how do we promote that even more? How do we make that more of a thing?
Well, I think here's the way I think we do it. So obviously I'm running a PTM program. I want to have, I don't want to have 100, but in theory, the more the better, right? And all colleges can do the same thing. So what I think, and the USTA has made some efforts in here too, right? They'll for years we get an email list from them, like, hey, here's, they're running ads on social media and stuff, and here's names that have clicked that say they're interested, and they send it to us PTM directors, and it's up to us to follow through with them. The problem is there's not that many that are just evolving and showing up at your front door, showing an interest. So if you just kind of wait and sit back and see who comes, there isn't. The PTR would probably want to have thousands more. The USPTA would rather have thousands more. There's no real good recruiting thing. So what I would say, and I would tell this to the USTA because they have the money to pull it off, is we know that in America, there's 355,000 high school tennis players. Okay. That's pretty consistent number. And high school tennis is a big deal. Right now, I wouldn't say that either the PTR or the USPTA or the USTA is famously known for helping out high school coaches. It's just not what they think. Now, they might say, hey, hold your horses there. But let's face it, no high school coach in my area has ever been reached out to these people. It doesn't mean that they don't want stuff. You might have stuff for them, but if you don't know how to get a hold of them. So here's the problem. Of that 350,000 prospects, those are all prospects for me as a PTM director. The problem is that's not a database. You don't have everybody's name in the high school database, Players of America, that you can go and buy the list and market to, right? So the only way you get to these kids is through their coaches or ADs. Okay, so we know there's tens of thousands of high school, middle school coaches in our country. So that you can get to them. Okay, there's ways to market to all the coaches in America through different marketing channels and email lists that you can buy. That's where I think that they should start. But then the problem is, will the USTA buy an email list? And they can't seem to want to do that. But it's really tough. But the way I've been doing it, and the way I recommend people to do it, is just the phrase "grow your own garden." So let's just narrow down to my PTM program here in Holland, Michigan, Western Michigan. I have a system where I go to all the local kids so we have a pretty good sized junior program, right? So I'm guessing we have a couple hundred high school kids that come to our lessons pretty much on a year-round basis, or at least seasonal. I will start reaching out to them, and I'll email that list all the time saying, hey guys, I have a volunteer opportunity. Do you guys want to come? And most of them are doing this National Honor Society, so they need volunteer hours anyway. And I say, why don't you try to help us with some kids? You know, you don't have to lead it, obviously, but this way, I get a look at them. And I always have probably every session at least 10 high school kids out there kind of working. Now, more recently, I developed a course online on tennisreels.tv that I share with them that they can get some training before they show up. So they're like, what's a red ball? What's the size of the court? What's visual scoring? And what can you expect from a 5-year-old versus an 8-year-old? So they see all this before they get there. And then once they get there, our coaches lead, and then they take their 3 little kids and do their thing. And it works good, but they get volunteer hours. I get extra help, for free. But more importantly, now I'm seeing 10 kids, and in my little brain, I'm like, man, that one would be amazing. I'm going to, and not all of them, but probably half of them, I'm going to say, hey, I want to talk to you. I hope, first of all, thanks for doing this. Secondly, you're pretty good at this. You have the right personality, you have the right demeanor. Do you know about this program? And I'd like to talk to you and your family about it. So we're growing our own garden, basically, and that's where we're getting most of our kids. Over half the kids in our PTM program came from the DeWitt Tennis Center junior program, so that we raised them up. So
it's a good success rate. So we would ask that of you. We would say, okay, if we want to grow the garden that is Metro Atlanta, we would come to you and say, okay, we want this advice. Can we use your preparation videos? I mean, I've got some, but they're targeted toward tennis for children specifically, because we do a lot of high school recruiting, because our best coaches aren't. I'm not coming to you saying I need a certified pro who's really good, because we don't pay $70 an hour or $100 an hour, right? So ours is, I can, like you said, are you happy hanging around with a bunch of 6-year-olds? If so, I can give you the lesson plan. I can teach you how to teach them, but you have to enjoy being there. And if you can help us find who might be interested, that'd be great.
Yeah. First of all, I could always do it myself, but I'm going to tell you something that very few people actually know. So I'm kind of breaking the news here with you guys. There's a guy in your area, Mark Kovacs, good buddy of mine. He's the sports scientist right there in Atlanta. And Scott Schultz, who I mentioned earlier, he's the first guy that ever started a PTM program at Ferris. He's retired from the USTA now. He was a high-level executive in the USTA, kind of the godfather of PTM programs. And then me, we're all buddies. So about a year ago, we formed a company called RSU, Racket Sports at University. And our first material, we're basically coaches education. Our first material, we don't want to certify. We're not USPTA, we're not PTR. We want to educate. So the very first dashboard of courses, if you will, is one for newer coaches, for trying to get people. And inside that dashboard of like 13 courses, the very first one, the most powerful one, is assisting with kids' classes. And it was literally me with 5 high schoolers and 5 moms training them, like, hey, here's a course. I did it live, right? But you could use that course and send it to all your members. Hey, members, adults, whatever, if you're interested, that's the other market, by the way. There's a lot of adults. I don't know tons, but I know several guys who are 55. They made all the money they'll ever need. They're tennis nuts. And they're like, you know what? Maybe I can just hang up my business thing. I'm still going to be fine financially. And I'm going to start working out at the club. And maybe I can teach this or that, the other. And those guys are rock stars. I have a couple at my club that have been volunteering.
They consider it a low stress gig, right?
Yeah, they're like, this is great. I get to wear shorts and go to work, and I'm already a millionaire. So what
they're even more low stress. That's great.
Yeah. So we're really close. We have a verbal agreement with the USTA, so to put that material out.
Nice.
So worst case scenario, I could always help coaches through tennisreels.tv. But our bigger thing is, like, if I do that, I have bills to pay. I got to pay a couple of employees and all this stuff to run the website. But we're asking the USTA that, guys, don't make this a barrier. Take this content, which is going to potentially grow all these. I'm not aiming at 28-year-olds. I'm aiming at rec players. Like, literally every rec player in America could be asked, "Are you have any interest?" You probably never thought.
We've got a few of those here in Atlanta.
Here's the thing: watch this video. We can show you how you can actually maybe do this pretty well and take away the fear, and then get them out into the clubs. And then all the local clubs, all you would have to do is just send out the email. Hey guys, new opportunity, really clever idea. We need help. Tennis needs help. You play tennis. You might think you need to be a rock star. You don't, but you need certain skills. We'll teach you these skills right here. And maybe a certain club will say, we'll go further and we'll meet face to face on top of that. But it has to be done for you. And not that many clubs, to be honest, are looking in their own garden. They're kind of like 9 times out of 10, when a pro calls me or texts me, I literally had one this week, say, hey, I need a new pro. It's a pro in Florida calling about, hey, one of my guys is leaving. He was a rock star. I need somebody good. They can make a lot of money. And I'm like, is there anybody in your membership or in your orbit and college, look around. Is there anybody? Because they always think they got to come from somewhere. And I'm just telling you, they're not beating down the planet to come and join the industry. So a lot of people are just like me, said, screw it. I got to just build my own dang garden because, the harvest isn't there. Like no one's around that wants to do this. So I got to make it.
That makes a lot of sense, and we'd love to take a look at that, because that's one of the things we're looking to do here in Atlanta is improve the interaction. We want to make it better. We want to make it. Everybody talks about tennis being more accessible and more affordable, and it's like, okay, well, is that what is? First of all, what does that even mean? We go back and forth on defining accessible and those kinds of things, but also, are there coaches out there that are affordable, and do we have an eye on them? Are they background checked? Are they safe sport trained? Are they? I mean, even if they're not certified, did you run a background check just to say, look, I'm good to play with kids? Right. And we've looked at these what we would call coaches, and we've got a lot of them here in the Atlanta area, where we're not all looking for the country club job. We're not all looking for that rock star. Some people just need a guy to feed some balls to their team, and they don't necessarily want to pay $100 an hour. So we've got to figure out, all right, where is that coach that we can give them a little bit of support, give them some training, give them some affiliate relationships and some potential pro shop relationships, and we can help them with the business of what they're doing. But we need to find them first, and that's one of the things Bobby and I talk about a lot. Where are they? Where do we recruit? How do we train them? Because obviously we can only be in one place at one time, but with online content, we can do a heck of a lot more.
Yeah. One thing I would do, I would even advise this to friends, or, maybe you guys can do it, but the ones I'm interested in are they live in 2 places. Okay. So they're either on high school teams. Everybody on a high school team is a potential PTM student for me. So I make real damn sure that I got a great relationship with all the high school coaches. They pretty much all recommend their kids to come and train with us in the off season. There's a couple coaches that are ambitious and they got their own things in the program or in the summer, and we're like, boom, do that then. No harm. There's enough tennis bodies. We have wait lists anyway, so it's not like we need every single kid to come. But just having a free clinic for high school, bring a ton of kids together, 36 kids, and they get a free couple of, maybe they spend an hour drilling and then they have an hour to listen to an expert, and they have an hour of someone else talking about this is what it could be. There's PTM programs, there's this. Did you even know? I can guarantee you, if I go up to 100 families at my club and say, have you ever thought about your kid, is really good at tennis, or he's, really loves tennis, and he's got the right personality. I think he could be a teaching pro and get, and 100 out of 100 will go, what is that a thing? Yeah, it's a thing. Me, right? I'm a tennis pro. I've been doing it. There's 6 of us that work here. Yes, it exists.
You do know we're capable of paying our mortgages, right?
Yeah. And they don't think of it. So just an introduction. We do stuff, Zoom meeting. Adam Ford is my co-director with me at the whole PTM program. And we have a PowerPoint that we present to people. Well, we call a Zoom meeting. We invite 500 families. 20 of them will hop on. We'll show them our Zoom thing. Here's all the cool things you get to do. Here's us at the US Open. Here's us talking to Martin Blackman. Here's us, and like, wow, here's us at this place. And they're like, oh, this is a thing, but that'd be one thing. The other thing is they also live on your USTA teams, in my opinion. Okay, so if I needed more help, I'm looking at the parents of my kids and my USTA teams, men and or women, and say, guys, interesting opportunity. We need some extra help. I know a lot of you love tennis and probably never thought of yourselves as coaches or even qualified, but we can train you. If any of you have an interest in maybe sniffing around, seeing what that would look like and what perks you can get out of it, check out this quick video that we made, because I'd love to invite you to, if they reply, yeah, I'm interested, you set them up with a course.
And do you get a decent response when you try to point out to someone, you don't have to have played college tennis. You don't need to be a former professional player to coach at a certain level, in the same way that you don't need to be a math major to teach second grade math.
Right. Yeah, that's a big part of my spiel. One of the biggest hurdles when I talk to PTM prospects and their families, the number one fear they have is that they're not good tennis players. They're not good enough. And my club is a great example. So at my club, I have 4 full-time pros, all certified pros. It just happens to be that they all were at the 5.0 level at one point. They all happen to be really damn good tennis players. So our kids look at pros and they go, oh, they incorrectly assume, oh, you have to be a 5.0 or higher player to be a tennis pro. So a big part of what I do is tell them, look, that won't hurt, but that's not a requirement. I have
no, that adds an ego that we got to deal with as director of tennis.
Yeah.
maybe we want the 3.0 or the 4.0 instead.
Yeah, I have some of the most solid kids are 3.5 to 4.0 players that we have, and they're probably not going to go to work for Sanchez Vicario Academy, and nor would I want them to, but they can go down to one of your clubs and they will be rock stars at running little kids. And they'll be rock stars at taking a 2.5 middle schooler and getting them to 4.5. That's how you become famous in tennis. We need 1 billion people that can take a 2.5 and turn them into a 4.5. We don't need a crap load of people. I don't care if I ever see another pro that can take a 4.5 to a 7.0. Whatever, dude.
Good for you.
That's not my life. They pay my bills. But
that doesn't build tennis, right? That's what we talk about all the time. We want the game to grow, and taking somebody who already plays tennis and making them better isn't always the target. Even though it's fun and that feels good, and you can say, yeah, that my kid went to college and played Division I. We love that. That feels good and that looks good on a resume, but does it grow the game? Yeah.
So that analogy of just kind of thinking of the NTPR scale, that's what we need. But a lot of people, especially young, they think, well, I really want to work with 4.5s and up. I mean, I want to be a coach national ranked kids. And I go, listen, that was me for a while. I lived that for 15 years and I went to national tournaments, and I remember the stress and the craziness of those parents, generally, not all of them. And if I had to do it again, if my daughter went into tennis teaching, I would say, look, don't worry about that. When I was a young pro, I had a girl, Kim Gates. I was working with her. She won the girls 16s hard courts out in San Diego when she was 13 years old. Okay, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, this girl is the next hottest thing. She's going to be famous. She's going to be a top tenner." USTA came in and tried to help. And at that time, if you would have asked me, I was the same way. I go, man, if unless I get fired here, I'm going to be sitting at the box at the U.S. Open when she's in the semis against whoever. Nothing could be farther than true. Even that, I mean, the number 1 ranked junior in America, like 100 times out of 101, doesn't get to be famous. So it's fool's gold that you're chasing that. I tell all our PTMers, my wish for you is that you become insanely good at taking a 2.5 and bringing in a 4.5. And the world will beat down a path to you for lessons, because that's 99% of who's at a club. So that's kind of a mindset shift.
I mean, we have spoken in the past, and we spoke with Scott coming down here. I think he was looking to put in a PTM program at Rome, Georgia as well.
Yeah.
And absolutely agree with everything you're saying, but how much of what Sean's saying is the barriers, the cultural, systemic, just the portrayal, whether it be the directors calling you and saying, "Oh, give me a rock star," and then the first thing out of their mouth says, "Well, they had to play college tennis." Well, we just lessen the pool. How do we perception across the board with the industry and the sport itself? We always use the Bill Belichick example. Bill Belichick didn't play football. His dad was a football coach. He played lacrosse. He's going to go down, all done, said and done, is the greatest coach who ever played football, a man who never took a snap. How do we change that perception in tennis to make it more, hey, the door is open, there's an opportunity here if you have the skills that you're talking about?
Yeah, so I think there's two pathways for that. The slow grinding pathway is that all of us need to be able to communicate that to the people in our garden, our own juniors, our own families, our own members. But I think on a national level, USPTA, PTR, or hopefully USTA, because they got money, they have the dough and they can put out a lot of good stuff for sure. But I haven't seen a video ever out of any of them organizations. Let's just put the onus on PT or USTA because they got a lot of money. Say, how are, I've seen a few years ago, you probably saw the really cool video that they put out promoting, and it was like shot in a court. It was all dark, and they hit it, and the ball would spray a bunch of talcum powder, and it was really high def, cool looking. And I'm like, if my high school kids saw that, they wouldn't go, "Oh, I can teach tennis." Never thought about that. That's a made for Madison Avenue video. They need to have videos of famous people, Isner, people that, hey, do you know that you can teach tennis? You might think this. Here's what your next step. Just sniff this out. And something like that, where I can send that, because I'll send it to 100 or 500 families. But right now it's Jorge and doing it, and they trust me, but still they know he's selling me a PTM program, So and a lot of club pros that need pros are always looking. I said, have you ever tried to just get some volunteers from your own club? And they're like, no, I don't want that. I want someone to walk in my front door that's damn good, and I want to hire them. Why? I'm complaining. Well, that's like the immature junior. I can't believe it. Why can't I hit winners all the time? Well, wake up, dude. They don't exist. They're not. No, you're not going to have a 6-0 player show up to your club magically and say, you know what? I'm currently a lawyer, but I'm 6-0 and I want to teach tennis, and I'll do it for not that much, and I want to work here for you. Doesn't happen. So you got to go make them. And I'd love to see something like that, that all of us could forward that. Hey guys, check out this video the USTA came up with, and it's totally true. You can get started right here at your home club. Please watch this. And if you have any questions, reply to this email. This is, I think, low-hanging fruit. But right now, all these potential people that could be, turned into pros, no one's even telling them. There's no system for it. I do it in, my little neighborhood. And I have a pretty good email list of followers. I, probably about over 30,000 people that I have emails to who I've sent stuff to over the years. So that's pretty powerful. But your average club pro doesn't have that. So I can send an email. Now I can't send that out every week because people start getting like all this, I don't want to buy this guy's program, but I can at least create some awareness. But
and you have 30, you said you got a big email list. Sorry to interrupt. Is that Michigan specific? Is that nationally?
No,
is that
it's
internationally?
Global. It's international.
Okay.
It's from years of people, getting free courses. If you want to, here's a free mental toughness course. Give me your email and I send it to you. And here's
so it's the list that Bobby and I are on also.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So on that list, I happen to have a unique mixture. It's my other online friends, they have way bigger lists than I do, but most of them are club players, they're players. My list, because of tennisreels.tv, has a lot of coaches on it as well.
Coaching market, right?
Yeah, so it's probably I'm thinking it's half and half in my list.
Okay, yeah, because that'd be interesting as we build out our project here in Atlanta, as we're building out Go Tennis. It would be fun to figure out what kind of deals we can make. What kind of promotion are you looking for that you would send out to your email lists. And like you said, your online friends, you've got some
Right.
guys you're working with. Who's the guy that does the World Conference, Maribon or whatever his name is?
Oh yeah, Mirabon, Tennis
Um,
Pals, and Will Hamill.
Yeah, so there are quite a few people out there. They're gonna have big lists and big followings, and the play your court guys, and you got guys with giant email lists, and it's what we're doing is trying to make friends with everybody and say, okay, we're only focused on Atlanta, so we're not trying to compete with anybody. We're not also doing online lessons. We're not also doing online videos. We want to take what you're already doing and make it better, and try to make tennis in Atlanta better. So I love hearing your ideas to say, hey, this is how we could do this. And in that case, Bobby and I can spend some time working with our team and say, okay, how do we do it in Atlanta specifically? What's our culture here? Can we find somebody in Atlanta to say, we don't just need more players, we need more coaches to get the players. We need more positive advocates in the area. And we love doing that by making friends and say, hey, how do you think we could get more positive advocates, and how would you help?
Yeah, I mean, let's say the city of Atlanta said, okay, we're going to hire Jorge, and we want you to help us. I'm not asking for that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I would say. I'd say let's have a coaches conference. Let's do a Zoom one, because that way lots of people can show up, and then we'll brainstorm ideas. And I'll say, here's what's worked for me. Just imagine that inside your club, you all have junior programs, and you all have, adult league program players and rec players and club players. What if each of you could pick off just 5 out of the hundreds you probably have, just 5 that would be willing to step up, get a little training, and start volunteering with some stuff? Would that be helpful? And 100% of the pros, yeah, that'd be freaking helpful. Okay, so here, how do you do it? Okay, so I have emails that you can swipe the copy and send it out. I have an intro video that talks about the idea, talking directly to high schoolers and 3 old ladies, and like, hey, relax. You don't have to be good. I'm just going to train you. And just to get interest. Okay. That's the next level. And then the next thing and they won't have a video like that probably. And then
Not many people do. And that's why we would lean on you and say, okay, obviously
Right.
that's promotional for your other businesses and you benefit from that. But we would lean on who's the best at doing that. Say, hey, you know what? Jorge is the best at this. We're using his product to promote what's going on, and everybody wins.
Yeah. And then the final phase, which I think was huge, because for years, what I would do, guys, is I talk to a high schooler. I see a high school, here's Sean, he's in my high school class, and I think he has an outgoing personality. So I go up one-on-one. Hey, Sean, are you an NTS? You need National Honor Society, NHS? You need volunteer hours? Yep. Would you consider volunteering with the junior kids? You can help us out with little kids. It's kind of fun. And you get your volunteer hours. Yep. Okay, I'll do it. All right, show up next Tuesday. That was the training. So what would happen is they show up on Tuesday, and Adam Ford is running 16 kids on, a big bunch of little mini courts. And Adam's demonstrating, and then he says to Sean, take those 3 kids and go do on that court what I just showed you. Okay, so it wasn't very good training, but at least most of these kids could mimic, right? Now I already have, through RSU, this course, Assisting with Kids class. So I can really take the stress down and say, look, I'm going to hold your hand, dude. I'm going to show you videos. You're going to see what a 5-year-old runs like, and how they trip over themselves, and how there's no way they're going to be rallying over the net, racket to racket, with another 5-year-old.
As Bobby says, you're complaining about his forehand, but the kid can hardly walk.
Right. And then I'm going to show you the specs. I'm going to show you the court sizes. I'm going to show you the different types of balls. I'm going to show you what rally expectations would be. I'm going to teach you a couple of little quick things, how you can fix somebody technically, because you probably don't feel like you're going to be able to say anything technically. And I'm going to teach you all these skills about how you talk to these kids. And trust me, you're going to walk out there first day, and I'm not going to even ask you to lead. You're just going to basically mimic. And then what happens is each club gets 5. So now across Atlanta, there's 150 people trying it out for the first time. Then you at your club, me at my club, we look at our 5 and say, these 4, but this one here, I'm going to follow that up with this guy. Hey, listen, you're killing it out there. How about you do another day? I don't maybe need you to volunteer. I'd like to add you to our staff. And this is, you just stir it up. You get some next people, you train them, they show up, you handpick a few more, and every year you do it. Next cycle. I made that course basically because I realized that some of these kids were walking in, I could see the nervousness in their eyes. Like, oh, shoot, okay, I'm here. Like, dude, this kid's a 5-year-old. No, he's not going to be judging you too much. He thinks you're a freaking rock star already, right?
They assume they assume you're
They're not.
competent.
Yeah, they don't worry about the 5-year. They're like, what if I say something stupid and Coach Adam thinks I'm done? No, we're just going to show you everything.
Don't
So
worry, you will. It's okay.
yeah, it's kind of our system. It seems fairly logical to me that um, the old way of just kind of pros will come knocking at your door, and there's going to be plenty of them around. That hasn't worked for years. What I hear from my friends at PTR and USPTA is, they've been stagnant for years. 1,000 people in, 1,000 people out, 1,000 people in, 1,000 people out. Hey, we need more pros. Well, we still got X thousand, and
Well, let's figure out how to create that culture where a pro thinks they're appreciated, whatever that means, whether it's financially or in response from the culture. Because at some point I look up and Bobby and I talk about it a lot, which is, okay, what is the USPTA done for me? And that's a question. Okay, well, yeah, we've got the benefits and we go through those things, but there's more that can be done to keep the coaches that are already certified or previously certified. Because there's got to be a list of potential coaches that have left because they either couldn't find a job, they weren't paid well enough. I mean, whatever all the reasons are. Or is it a pandemic related scenario where we probably have a lot of people out there looking for some part-time work that are perfectly willing to learn a little bit, play some tennis. In Atlanta, it's tough because tennis here is mostly free. Right. So it's a different culture. It is people going out on their tennis court, playing for free, paying for lessons is an intolerable $100. It's difficult to come up with. Other areas, tennis is expensive. We read a lot of articles. Bobby and I send them back and forth every once in a while. But it's all this thing of golf and tennis are so expensive and they're elite sports and you can only be a member of a country club. And that's just not how it is here in Atlanta. Tennis courts are free. Access to tennis is pretty much free. Right. You can spend, $20 at a Walmart, have a couple of rackets and some tennis balls, go out to your local neighborhood courts or the local club, spend $2 and go play some tennis.
Right.
And how do we get those kinds of people into it, which is exciting, get those new people in, but then also be able to have a guy like you that says, hey, I can help you train those people and get them excited about it because you're capable of creating the videos. You already have the content. There's thousands of drills there. If there's a package available, we want it and we want to promote it. Because, hey, you know what? You don't have to come in being that 6-0, former 5-0, 6-0 player, rock star coach. Everybody knows it takes time to evolve into a great coach.
Yeah. So one thing I want your listeners to know about, so this RSU thing, Racket Sports U, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to get that out through the USDA, which means it'll be free. It'll probably live on their LMS, and they're getting that finalized. So obviously I'll let you know about that because free is better for everybody. And honestly, I'd rather have the USTA pay me and then we make it free to the whole of the coaches. I don't think for this particular product, which is trying to grow the sport and the people that you're going to need to do it, don't put a bunch of money barriers in front of that. Just make it free and get it out to as many people as possible. So I think that's coming. But also on tennisdrills.tv, as of about maybe 2 months ago, so I have obviously 2,000 tennis drills, all of them you can print a diagram, and there's 80 courses. Like, this is not just a drill, but actual courses, and 25 to 30 of those courses, any one of us could take a quiz. They're all optional, but if you take the quiz and pass it, you get automatic PTR and USPTA credit. But what you may not know is for years, the only thing you could do there is go and join it or do a $1 trial. But now on that site, I have 15 totally free drills. You can see them without doing anything. You don't need to opt in. You don't need an email. You don't need a credit card. And I even put 3 full courses free on the site because, I'm a tennis guy. I mean, sure, I want tennis drills to make millions and millions. It's not going to do that. But I also want to help coaches. Okay. I know I'm never going to have 100,000 subscribers on tennis drills. It's not going to happen, but I can still help coaches. So just having 15 drills is probably more than most coaches have in their arsenal and their rotation right now. And they're totally free. And then you can take those courses. There's 3 of them in there. And I think one of them even has a quiz. You can get PTR USPTA credit on it. So I would direct people that want to expand their drills in just to tennisdrills.tv. And without spending anything, they can get a whole bunch of free stuff today that they can use.
Well, and I know Sean has alluded to it, and it will be a different conversation. But I think part of, give yourself credit, part of what you're talking about is you as a person, you as the story, what you've done to get into the field, the way your entrepreneurial, that spirit translates into so many other areas. And how do we create that a part of a curriculum or an understanding to a potential applicant that it's not you're going to be sitting around hitting a tennis ball to a person who's going to be 2-0, and if you're looking to get into the Wimbledon box, hey, wrong profession. What you're looking to do is create experiences, lifetime moments that they're going to look back someday and say, hey, you remember that crazy tennis coach? I really learned a lot more than just tennis.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we all have that. One of the things that we do for PTM recruitment, almost every PTM prospect that comes in is sniffing around the idea of PTM. Their number one concern is, what if I don't like it and I'm stuck? I'm going to be a teaching pro and I have to be on the court doing it. So the way we combat them is we take an annual trip down to the national campus in Orlando. And I line up people over a 3-day period. I line up John Embry, Scott Schultz, Martin Blackman, Paul Roeder, Chris Michalowski. Craig Jones. They meet everybody. Leah, when she was there. Some of their pros. Rita, the expert with little kids. They go over and they meet Satoshi over with the high performance. And they're going to meet probably 17 people who are doing tennis. They're in the tennis industry. And 2 of the 17 are currently tennis pros. The rest are people that were tennis pros that are now working, for NJTL, or they're working with high performance and fitness, or they're working maybe they're still teaching tennis because that's the path that they chose to stay on. But that's the number one thing. And we convert. That trip really converts for us because kids come back and like, oh, okay, I freaking get it. And we always tell the kids, even if you don't think you want to, right now, there's probably a good 50% of the kids in my PTM program that if they had to be honest, right now, today, college kids, they would say, I don't envision myself being an on-court pro for that many years, but which kind of is a bummer because that's what we need a lot. But what I always tell them, and all my friends tell them, that's fine. But my strong recommendation is do that for a couple of years minimum. The skills you'll learn, the people assets you'll build up, because people love it when you were a kid. There's nothing like it. Teach tennis for a little while. All those people you met, Scott Schultz, tons of them, they used to be teaching pros, and now they've moved on, and they're still in the tennis industry because the tennis industry is big. And this isn't you teaching, women's teams and little kids for the next 50 years. You'll have lots of options.
We know plenty of people that have done. Oh yeah, I taught for a few years, out of college. I hear that all the time.
Yeah, and so when I can show them that, look, it's not just PTM doesn't just mean PTM means professional tennis management. Means you're in the tennis industry. The most common thing to do in the tennis industry, and where there's the biggest need right now, is tennis teaching professionals. But beyond that, you can do this and this and this and this. And they just meet all these people. They meet Jason Gilbert, take him over to Florida USPTA or Florida USTA, which is like right next to the campus. And they meet all those people. Wow, there's 18 people working here for the Florida section of the USTA. What do? You do digital marketing. What do you?
None of them are coaches. Yep.
And they're like, man, this is like an industry here. I can maybe do, if I don't, I won't be stuck is what I want them to take away from them.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things I like that we have a lot of conversations amongst ourselves, obviously, but also in the podcast. And it's fun to talk to guys like you that we don't usually have somebody on here that we look at and say, oh my gosh, we completely disagree. Like that happens so rarely with it. The people that get to the point that where we are in our careers, that we've seen enough, that we get what's going on, we see the pain points in the industry and try to figure out how do we get together with the people that we know and the people that are interested in tennis for tennis's sake. Tennis itself, not just my career or how do I get the next thing. And there's a time for that. But for tennis, tennis for tennis sake and to make it better. And I think that's a great scenario that we've had plenty of ways to talk to people. And this podcast specifically gives us a chance to do that, to talk to people like you and say, okay, what would you do? And that leads me into kind of typically my last question that I ask before I let you talk about whatever you want. If you had anything specific other than yourself or us to talk about, is my king of tennis question, because we've got some experience. We're not asking a starting out pro. We're not asking somebody that doesn't know what's going on. You've got a global reach. You've got a global understanding, and your credentials are impeccable. So if there was someone other than John McEnroe that we might actually pick for king of tennis, and that's just my personal choice, but if you were king of tennis, do you have any ideas as to, is there one thing you would change? Is there a direction you would go? How would you manage that reign of Jorge Capestany of taking over the world with tennis?
I have two thoughts that come to mind. I think the first one is just because this is the space I live in. I'm a coach developer. I used to do that for the USTA. I don't do that anymore. But I've been a coach developer. I got thousands of people that subscribe to Tennis Real-Time TV, and I have my own little army of customers. And I love hearing from them when they get their Sunday. Every Sunday we put out new content. They go, hey, I love that, So I would put a lot of energy into coach education and increasing the base, which is a lot of what we talked about in this podcast so far. So I would keep doing all that. I would probably, if I had the USDA's budget, I would literally create programs that go after all these high school players and help high school coaches. There's a lot of high school coaches that are pretty, it's a weird mix. In Michigan, there's high school coaches that don't play tennis, but a lot of schools in Michigan, if you want to be the high school tennis coach and you're a teacher, you get first right of refusal. So even if Jorge Capestany comes in,
that's how it works here.
They'll give it to a total beginner, which is fine. But we have coaches that need a lot of help because they don't even know tennis. And then we have other coaches who are master professionals working in a club, but they also coach, so it's a huge discrepancy. You don't see quite as much discrepancy in the teaching profession that's already at a club, but you do at the high school level. So that's one thing I would do everything I could to help out high school coaches. At the pro level, okay, everybody talks about, what's going on, American tennis and the men's tennis. I wouldn't even be that interested in that. I'd probably assign someone else to do that thing because that's not what floats my boat. Sure, I want to have an American Grand Slam champion. I'd love to have that. I have a history way back in high performance of getting kids pretty high. I'm not an expert at what it takes to get in the top 50. Frankly, even if I was, I wouldn't want to spend my energy in that because that's what am I going to do? Travel the world and not be with my wife? So I want to have a job where I go home every night.
We call that rule number 5. Well done.
It's a tough nut to crack, but I think, the number one concern, if I was the czar, the king, is I think there's a real problem that tennis. We had this tennis COVID boom, right? Where all these clubs said, wow, a ton of people have entered the clubs and the data shows it, ball usage and stuff like that. I had that too. So I talked to a lot of friends. We had definitely an increase. Our budget went up the year of COVID, even though we were closed for 3 months. We had more people. So I talked to coaches, pro friends of mine from all over the world. And they said, yeah, we all had that, but not everybody maintained those people. So some Club A did and Club B didn't. I talked to Club B, what happened? Now we're back to normal. We're back to pre-COVID numbers. I'm not. I'm still at post-COVID numbers, even though hopefully COVID's gone out of our hair for a while. Because when you go into Club A, you might have had a crappy experience. Lessons that aren't that good, a lot of standing around, a lot of coach talking the whole time, not enough ball hitting. And if that's the club you happen to live by, you went and tested it out, chances are you kind of slid out of there and you didn't love it. But hopefully you went to Holland, Michigan, and you went to my club and you experienced great, all these new COVID people, and there was great lessons and there was lots of options and play opportunities and the coaches were fun and you're like, hey, that's that, and they're still there. So even though most clubs experience the COVID boom, about 50% of them is what I'm gathering have maintained it, and the other 50% are kind of like, well, those people are falling off. We didn't impress them enough to keep them in the game. Um, and no surprise, it's the clubs with the most educated pros and the most, it's really the pros. No one said,
It's all
well,
about the instructor. We
suck,
say
but they
that a
really
lot.
like the towels in the locker room, so that's what kept them.
No, it's all about the instructor.
Yeah. So, if I'm a club owner, man, this is what's so paradoxical. Pros probably don't get paid what they're worth overall. I'm sure some do in some areas, very regional. I know that. Um, but yeah, that's the thing I would concern myself with is trying to grow the number of coaches and make them good. I'm not when I say I make someone good, I'm not saying make them good so they know all the sports science stuff to get the next Grand Slam. Screw that, dude. I'm saying right here, get good from 2.5 to 4.5. You do that, you'll be a well-paid pro, and that's what our country needs, frankly.
I agree, Bobby.
I'm thrilled. We want content. Content.
Well, let's get together after this podcast because I will show you what we have, and I think it'll flip you out because I think you'll be like, we've shown this to certain groups. We were going down the path of certain sections, USTA sections. We actually had a deal with Florida that said, man, no way that exists. This is what we need. And then USA National found out and said, hey, let us maybe help you get that out. And we took a while to get that through. But I think that's coming. But that's what we need. It's not how to become a tour player. It's like, here's how you would get help, start helping and teaching tennis, which right now, I think if you call 100 tennis clubs in America and say, do you have all the pros you need? Probably you'd be shocked. I mean, well, we could use, we're a little thin over here. So many people. And they call me, literally, I was telling you, a pro for two pros. They both happen to be Florida pros this week. Were asking me, man, so-and-so left. I need somebody. I'm like, dude, I don't know what they call me because I'm connected and I get around and I know a lot of people. But they also call me because they think I have a PTM student on the shelf. Say, okay, boom, dispatch. I go, these kids graduate in 4 years. We only started 4 years ago. I don't have, we only have like 4 PTM students, graduates in the ecosphere right now. That's how new we are. We got 15 in the pipeline, but they're not ready for a couple of years. They got to get their degree and they're sticking around. So, but they want them now and they want them good. I heard they're good, So it's a tough situation.
Well, and it's no coincidence we're talking to you because it's one of the reasons I tracked you down is because I have checked out everything, maybe not everything, but a lot of what you do. I appreciate it, and it's at levels of what I do and some of the things I've tried and get myself into and making videos and writing articles and the things I do. I'm thinking I need to go talk to Jorge because he's just flat out better at it than I am. But I've gotten some incentive, and we wanted to talk to you because we do think you're one of the best at this and in this space with encouraging coaches. And I'm excited to know that Racket Sports University is a thing because if there's anything 10 and under that I can help with, if there's anything Atlanta based from a point of view of understanding the area Bobby and I are in, we want to be a part of it because we think that's a phenomenal idea. And it's the type of thing that we can help Atlanta get more coaches, get better coaches, but also not have to have that phone call and say, okay, where's that former top 10 player or where's that former great player that decides he wants to be a professional coach? Because that's not all that common.
Yeah, it's almost non-existent. At least I haven't had one of those unicorns in literally decades.
I'm sure.
They don't exist. So.
Yeah, and we love the idea. It's not much different from what I do with Tennis for Children, where we recruit in the same way. We hit the same areas you do, and we can train you. We can't train you to be great with kids, but we can train you to teach the tennis. So if we can find somebody who is great with kids, we can teach you how to teach tennis. You
Yeah,
know, that part is learnable, but that personality type that you described earlier really is what you look at. And you can see you got 10 high school kids there. You pick out that one or two, you be like, give me him, give me her. Come
yeah,
over here, let's talk.
yeah, yeah. That's totally true. And it was always weird to me because it's different than what you anticipate. You kind of thought, there was this girl recently named Hannah, and I picked her as a volunteer, and she helped out. And personality wise, she was a little quiet, a little on the quiet side. I almost didn't invite her, but then I saw her on the court, and she's like, we played this little game. They're 7, 8 year olds, so they can just rally, but not really great. So the game where you flip a card, it's like four. Okay, so now we got to get four in a row, and if you do, you get to put a clothespin on the thing. Then you flip a card. Oh, this one's a three. Okay, that should be easier. And we're just having them do that game, and she was doing it with a kid, and I'm just watching, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, she's got good ball control. Every time they succeeded, she'd like, yeah, she'd run up, high five the girl, and I put it, and I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? I mean, I was freaking out because she high fived the girl and did that, and people were like, that's what's important. I go, hell
That's
yeah,
the best part about that coaching experience. Yep,
and
exactly. You'd be like, I don't care if she can hit the backhand. That is
Yeah.
the best part. She ran up to that kid, gave a big high five. You're like, you're hired.
Yeah, and I'm like, and literally that day, when the class was done, I caught up with her. I go, hey, dude, that was really, really good. Let me tell you specifically what I mean. When you didn't reach the rally, like, no problem, guy, come on up, and you actually told her that, you used her name, you got down to her level, and then eight, no way, this is going to be hard. Let's try eight. Oh, we blew it. Okay, two, this should be easy. Come on, we can do two. And she's doing that naturally. Um, and then maybe the kid next door is doing the same thing, but they're just not animated.
Yep,
Um,
it's a different thing.
so I'm like, dude, you're pretty special at this. I'd like to, get you doing this more days if you're interested. And then those ones that kind of rise to the top, those are the ones that might say, let's get you paid.
Yeah.
You volunteer enough, and I think you're a rock star. So let's get you paid, and maybe I can use you in the summer and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like it, and that's exactly what I expected. I love the conversation. I love that you're doing exactly what I had hoped that was going to be next for you.
Sure.
Because you're the guy that I would want doing that. And I'm pretty much out of questions. Bobby, was there something from our conversation you want to ask Jorge specifically?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Well, guys, I appreciate the chance to talk with you, and hopefully some of the ideas we bounced off are helpful to people. And let's set up another time between the three where I can show you what ours you have now, and maybe they'll wrap your head around whether that can be useful to you or not.
Do not worry. I am Mr. Follow-up when it comes to something I want. So this is
Cool.
definitely something I want. So I'll be there. We'll figure out how to help Atlanta, but also help you. Because like I said, we want this to be something that helps the tennis world. Like I said, not just tennis for tennis sake, because at some point it's got to make sense. There's got to be training. There's got to be money made. There's got to be some money spent. But our goal here is to make a better experience for everybody. We know Atlanta specifically. We're not going to try to tell you how to do anything in Michigan, but when we see what you have to offer, we definitely want to figure out how to make friends with you and figure out how that helps Atlanta in general. It'll help us recruit new coaches, get new players in, and that's one of the things that with Atlanta Tennis Podcast and Go Tennis coming out, I think we're supposed to launch in the next couple of weeks. So we'll definitely let you know what happens with that as well.
Love it, guys. Okay, well, again, thanks again, and it was great to talk with you guys.
Thanks for taking the time,
you.
Jorge.
You have a great day.
Thank you. Good job, guys.
Thanks, Jorge. That was good.
Cool. I love it.
And the goodbye. I will stop with that.